Today we're going to talk about how to survive a nuclear winter. Now before we go further, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. Now first off, your question might be, what is a nuclear winter? Now imagine a scenario where the sun doesn't shine like it used to and the weather is freezing cold all the time. This scenario is known as a nuclear winter. It's a possible consequence of a large-scale nuclear war. But what exactly is it and how does it happen? Let's break it down in simple terms. So let's go over the basics of a nuclear winter. A nuclear winter happens when there are so many nuclear explosions that they cause massive fires, sending tons of soot and smoke into the atmosphere. This thick layer of particles blocks sunlight from reaching the Earth's surface. This would lead to a dramatic drop in temperatures worldwide. How does it happen? Here's a step-by-step of how a nuclear winter could occur. First, at the very basic level, it's nuclear explosions. If nuclear bombs are detonated, especially over cities and forests, they create huge firestorms. Now, these firestorms burn through everything in their path, creating enormous amounts of smoke and soot. This smoke and soot rise high into the atmosphere, creating a thick, dark cloud that can spread across the globe. This cloud will block sunlight from reaching the Earth, causing temperatures to drop significantly. Now, let's talk about some of the consequences. The effects of a nuclear winter would be devastating. With less sunlight, the Earth's temperature would drop drastically, possibly below freezing even in the summer. Next, we would have crop failures because plants need sunlight to grow. So with crop failures, we would have widespread food shortages, which would then lead to famine and starvation. With crops failing, there wouldn't be enough food for people, leading to famine and starvation on a global scale. There would be an ecological disruption as well. Many plants and animals might not survive a sudden change in climate, leading to a collapse of ecosystems. Understanding nuclear winter is important because it highlights the severe consequences and long-term effects of nuclear warfare. So it's not as simple as, hey, if I survive the nuclear blast, I'll be okay. You still have to worry about the long-term effects, which is a nuclear winter. It could make much of the planet uninhabitable for humans and many other forms of life. We're going to hope that this scenario just remains a theory and doesn't become a reality. But I like to prepare for worst case scenarios. Now we're going to talk about how to survive a nuclear winter. Now the first thing you need to do is take potassium iodide every day until the danger is no longer present or 10 days have passed. Potassium iodide protects the thyroid gland from radiation injury after a nuclear incident. With potassium iodide, there are different doses that you take based on your weight and your age. I do have a full video on that, but I also have a PDF document that I can send to you if you email me. And also just make sure that you're buying actual potassium iodide, like the real thing, because there are a lot of fakes out there right now. A lot of people have started selling fake potassium iodide when they notice that the world is worried about a nuclear war. I have my recommendation on the beacons button on my profile. If you have any questions, just DM me on any social media. So stock up on potassium iodide before a major nuclear event happens, because when you actually end up needing it, you can't wait for them to ship it to you. By then it'll be already too late. Don't start trying to panic buy it when a politician goes on TV and says that there's a threat of nuclear war. Buy it now before it happens. Now, you'll also need a gas mask. Make sure you get a really good quality one. I know there are a bunch of places selling you gas masks from overseas that are like $20 to $40. A lot of them are complete garbage and do not work. A lot of them haven't even been properly lab tested. You won't find out that it's ineffective until you actually need to use it, and by then it'll be too late. So make sure you're buying the good quality stuff. I know it's a little bit expensive, but it's definitely worth the money. Next, you need a hazmat suit. This will provide a barrier against radioactive particles. This will also protect your skin from hazardous chemicals. This will also protect your skin from bacteria and pathogens if you're going into contaminated areas. You also need a Geiger counter, which is a handheld device that detects and measures radiation levels. After a nuclear explosion, radioactive particles can spread over large areas by wind and weather patterns. Those particles are invisible, odorless, but highly dangerous. So you can use it to detect radiation and avoid highly contaminated areas. Radioactive fallout can also contaminate water, soil, and food supplies. So you can use it to check them as well. If you consume something that's contaminated, you're going to have very serious health issues. The next thing to know is that depending on where you are, you will be very cold due to the fact that much of the sun is blocked out. Also, your electricity and heating won't work, so you will need to find other methods to keep warm. Make sure you have lots of warm clothing like hoodies, jackets, thermals, and base layers. Make sure you buy some good quality wool socks as well, at least a few pairs. Some extra blankets, ideally made of wool, those will keep you very warm. You can even layer up and use 2 blankets instead of 1. You can also create a designated hot room where your whole family can gather up. Your body heat is going to help keep each other warm. You can put water in a pot, boil it outside on a fire, and then bring it back into the room. This will bring up the temperature of your room. You can also fill water bottles with hot water and give one to each family member so then they can keep it under their shirt or under their blanket or anywhere they want. You can also take some sheets or some blankets and put them at the bottom of your door to keep the cold air from coming in. If you can buy real fur mitts, hats, and blankets, that's great. But real fur is very expensive. The fur mitts will cost you hundreds of dollars and the blankets can cost you thousands of dollars. Meanwhile, a good quality wool blanket will cost you about $70, so that might be a better option for the most of us. Next, we have fire and warmth. You need to be able to cut wood and make fire or have a propane heater and or a propane stove. Just make sure you stock up on lots of propane tanks. Now, the question that comes up a lot is what will happen to the food? Will that get contaminated as well? So the answer to that is that packaged food will still be edible. That's why I tell you guys to try and stock up on about 6 months worth of food or more. Hopefully you have lots of food, otherwise you're going to quickly run out of it. Then you'll have to go to neighbors, you'll have to go to friends, you'll have to go to abandoned stores and other places like that to look for food. The other option will be to go and hunt for food if there are any animals left. According to experts, the skin of the animal won't be good, but the meat inside will be okay. Just make sure you cook it. Next is water. Your water bottles and water rations will be okay because they're packaged. Now, the ideal situation would be that after you run out of water, you can go to a nearby river or something like that and then boil the water and make it drinkable. But that water might be contaminated by radioactive particles and boiling it will not make it safe to drink. This is where your Geiger counter comes in. If you have a good quality one, like the ones I recommend, it will work and it will detect it. Some experts say that the tap water will not be affected. But I still think that if possible, we should wait for confirmation after the water has been properly tested before we try and drink it. Or even when we try to use it for washing dishes or washing clothes, we should still try and get confirmation that it's been tested or use our own Geiger counter to test it ourselves. But for this reason, I think you should try and store as much water as possible. I would recommend about 180 gallons of water per person. You can store regular stacks of 24 water bottles that you get at Walmart for like $3. You could buy BPA-free water jugs and fill them up. If you have the money, you could buy 55-gallon water barrels and fill them up as well. I checked the price of them today, they're about $126 each. The bottom line is to store as much water as you possibly can. The next thing I would recommend is a NOAA radio so you can get emergency updates about what's going on. You should also try and store some other forms of entertainment like books, board games, and playing cards. Make sure you have a good quality first aid kit. Don't just go to Walmart and buy any $15 first aid kit. Those are okay if you're really on a budget, but for our purposes, I would recommend some sort of medical outdoor first aid kits or adventure first aid kits. A lot of people have been asking about what my recommendation is for first aid kits, and I finally just put them up on my profile today so you can check them out. I also recommend hygiene supplies like soap, toothpaste, toilet paper, and feminine hygiene products. You also need things like bleach, Lysol wipes, paper towels, and garbage bags. This will help take care of trash and waste because the usual services will not be working. If it gets to a point where people are going around and looting homes, then your family will be in danger, so make sure you have some good self-defense tools ready. Alright guys, that's all I have for today. Make sure to like and subscribe.